acceptance of thousands of pounds of freebies is on the front of the Mail. And also on that story, The Telegraph leads with admissions from the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, that she too accepted freebies. Fears over how the elderly will cope without winter fuel payments are on the front page of The Express, saying 86% of the poorest pensioners will lose financial help. Claims that the UK will have to give young Europeans 4-year visas in return for a softer Brexit trade deal are on the front of the Eye. The Financial Times leads with fiscal gloom as public debt hits 100% of GDP for the first time since the 1960s. And a brain surgeon's claim that during a week-long coma he went to heaven and it smelt like fried chicken features on the front of The Star. A reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Susie Boniface and Anita Boateng. Welcome to you both. Let us start with the Times and Labour's woes over freebies running up to their conference. Sir Keir Starmer and his top team announcing tonight that they will not be accepting freebies for clothes, at least.
Yes, anymore. The ones they've got is fine. They've got the wardrobe's full now. They were waiting for a bit to get the final delivery in. Obviously, Evri wasn't delivering on time or something. No, so I don't make too much light of this because, you know, there are people who will take a political view and they'll say, look, you know, the Tories did far worse and there was far more corruption. And then there other people will say, well, look, they got elected on the back of a lot of public disgust with corruption and so on, and seemed to be on the take by the last government. So you've got to be whiter than white. And then there's people saying, well, look, they're not going to be wearing a hair shirt. I do think that we treat, particularly the women involved in this, the female politicians and Mrs Starmer, we treat them, or the media, I should say, treats them like they are a constant moving target. What is she wearing today? You know, I wanted to talk about, and Sam Cam had it, and Cherie Blair had it, and they've all had it. And I've got a great list of, I think you do have to have some clothes gifted, donated, that you're part of that role maybe is to represent British fashion, and that is something that should be done. But leave those poor women alone,
it's about clothes for the Prime Minister as well.
Clothes for politicians. But, you know, Rachel Reeves is going to get far more attention, especially if she wears the same suit from Georgia Asda every day for a week, like some of us might do, you know, and they can't go out and do the school run wearing
other
scuzzy
suits
sweatpants.
are available from other outlets as well.
You have to do it. But I do worry that this Christmas they're all going to be like house elves, terrified of getting a present of socks, and they won't want to receive anything. They're now saying we won't have any more freebies. But, you know, they have got a process. They do get offered loads of stuff. I think the fundamental problem here is the messaging, the communications. The fact this was clearly going to happen and be made a fuss of was handled really badly. The insistence that they weren't going to do it anymore has taken, what, 4 days to be said? A week, sorry. That shouldn't have happened. And Lady Starmer, frankly, I think she needs an office of her own in Downing Street to protect her from some of this, because as the wife of the Prime Minister and as we'll see later as well with Sue Gray, the women that are involved in this get a far load more of abuse, especially about their clothing, the way they look, how they behave, than some of the men do. And I think at the moment she's probably just getting helped by some of the Downing Street team, and they're busy doing the country stuff. She needs someone to look after her. So it's been a bit unfair, but they have handled it badly. There you go.
Anita, in terms of the broader story, we read that the Prime Minister's, the new stance, the announcement that they made this evening, he doesn't include giving up hospitality, such as football tickets.
Yeah, it's really funny. I've really seen a division in which of these two things is more egregious to politicians, journalists, secondariat, partly depending on gender. Because from my perspective, I think that I'm actually, when you look at the Office of the Prime Minister, there is a lot of work that has to go into people thinking about how a Prime Minister, particularly a female Prime Minister, looks. They get no support with their hair or their makeup, which sounds trivial, but actually really matters for the amount they're in the public eye. And I've always found that, like, incredibly unhelpful, actually, and takes up a lot more time than you would expect from people who are not qualified and paid to do those jobs. That, to me, and the clothing issue is very, very distinct from the Arsenal thing, which is honestly baffling to me, because I totally get that Keir Starmer is a fan of Arsenal, but he talked about when he became Prime Minister, public service is a privilege. I'm going to restore respect and a sense of service to politics, and talking about doing the job with humility. And then sort of goes, well, it's ridiculous that I can't go to a live Arsenal match. And I'm like, well, you do get to be the Prime Minister. I mean, it feels to me as though £35,000 spent in hospitality so he can watch a live Arsenal match doesn't feel to me to be the right balance here. Of course you want the Prime Minister to have downtime, but this is not about the Prime Minister going and supporting cultural institutions, going to concerts, going to theatre. That's really important for the Prime Minister's hinterland, for his experience and appreciation of Britain. This is just a man being a fan of Arsenal, which is absolutely fine. And incidentally, there have been instances of Prime Ministers like Sunak actually going into the stands and making that work. But the idea that every single week he has to watch this game live and has to be in a box, I'm just not sure that that's actually appropriate as the right balance. Because the question about integrity is not about whether you follow the rules. It's about the guiding principle. And when you've got a situation where people are disillusioned with politics, and I actually don't believe at all that politicians, especially not Starmer, is out on the take and just wants, what he can get. But this kind of thing, I think, is just there's a lack of judgment here that feels quite profound to me. And I still, I asked a Labour politician, why can't Keir Starmer pay for his glasses? And I don't think I've gotten an answer to that question.
I got mine from glasses. Well,
I mean,
I can't say where from.
£2.5 grand.
Mine were like 20 quid. Plus the lenses, it cost a bit more. But how can you? What you get? Is he got Tony Stark's glasses and they're like
Can
AI?
you read articles on his glasses? Yeah. It's actually, I think it was £4 grand.
Call in a drone strike.
Susie, let's bring in the Telegraph, because they mention a point that you brought up as to whether some of this will be paid back now. They're quoting actually a Labour MP saying that, if it was wrong then, they've changed their stance, but if it was wrong then, or you decided it's wrong now, then you should repay the money.
And the fact that there's a really simple argument here, and Anita summed it up. If we expect these people to be in the public eye, to be a certain standard of presentation, I think we could probably all agree, Boris Johnson was a shambling mess of a wardrobe when he walked, and it was embarrassing as London Mayor and as Prime Minister that he was wearing the same old creased suit, and several times I think he was reported wearing the same socks day after day after day. It was foul, right? And you'd file. But when you're very posh, you can be incredibly scruffy and you don't give a damn. And there's points being made by one MP, I think, in the Times. When you've worked a bit harder to get there, you feel you have to present yourself better and you have to fill the role and wear the clothes. I think there is a good argument, and this doesn't seem to be a transaction. It's not like someone's given them clothes to get something back. There's been no sign of that. It's someone who's just said, my God, you need some clothes. Here's my card.
Donuts, isn't it?
Exactly.
But Anita, just to the Mail, because we're running out of time, just in terms of Sir Keir Starmer's popularity, it does seem to have been hit somewhat.
Yes, and I think it's the cack-handedness and the fact that they've now decided to say they're going to stop taking them, and the fact they basically didn't find any ways to create any safeguards around this. And I think it is actually significant that Starmer's popularity does seem to be waning very, very soon into his leadership. What are we at? 60-something? Yeah, days into his premiership. And it feels as though, a lot of chatter around Westminster, around the doom and gloom around the government as a whole. There is a scandal around clothing, also the scandal that's up at the top of the Mail about, Sue Gray. And a feeling of malaise seems to have descended on this party that is, coming into its first conference as a government in 14 years, which should be the exact opposite. And I think that does actually matter, because it infects the mood when you're supposed to be having 3 or 4 days just to simply set out your stall at a party conference.
Susie, take us to the Mirror. Front page, Al Fayed was a monster.
Yeah, what more is there to say? So Fayed's dead. His victims now feel able to speak out in a way they couldn't when he was alive. And although there's no justice really for them, what there may possibly be is that there will have been people around Fayed who perhaps facilitated what he was doing. and they may still be around and may still have some questions to answer. There's obviously also the fact that he was spoken to by the police several times and they weren't able to proceed. There should be reviews of those decisions. I think it was early, mid-noughties, before 2010, that those interviews happened. So the chances are that things are very different now. Post-Weinstein, post-Savile, there'll be a different attitude in the CPS. There might be something looking there. But also, let's remember, some of this offending happened before the death of Princess Diana in '97, and while there was still...
Yeah, we must just say it's alleged offending.
Alleged offending.
These are allegations.
Well, I don't think he's going to sue us. But just, while these alleged allegations were going on, there were still 4 royal warrants on the outside of Harrods. And there was a report today in some of the papers that the palace was made aware of some of these issues while Diana was alive because Diana was doting his son. So, how much did the royal family know? And why were there royal warrants stuck on the outside of Harrods when this is what was going on inside, and how many people did know about it?
Still lots of question marks, and that story I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about in the coming weeks and months. Susie and Anita, for the moment, thank you very much. Coming up, more of the morning's newspapers, including this on the front of the Express. Their headline, heartless. 86% of poorest pensioners will lose fuel help. Stay with us for more.
They've pushed the protesters further back here. There's around 200 or 300 still remaining.
I'm Dan Whitehead and I'm Sky News' West of England correspondent.
This van goes onto the streets of Plymouth 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
These facilities at the moment are a lifesaver. It's all we've got.
From fishing communities to bustling cities, we spend every day reporting from across the region, hearing from people who have real stories.
I'll have nowhere to live for about 3 or 4 months.
There are still people inside the properties here.
They're coming from the epicentre of what is now a global health pandemic. We were seeing and speaking to young women who were selling themselves right on the high street. It was desperately sad, and the fact it was happening right in the heart of this community. Before Brexit, these oysters were being exported to the EU, but the trade stopped overnight.
What's your feeling about the future then?
Blake might all be finished, I don't know.
Trust in politics is at an all-time low. What's going wrong and can we fix it? It's from Liz. She wants to know, why is there still no sign of the Labour Party electing a woman as leader?
It's sort of embarrassing. You know, it takes a very strong man to be leader, but it takes an even stronger man to support a woman for leader.
If you want to be mean to politicians, crack on. The activists that go out and make elections happen, I kind of feel like just don't be horrible to them. Be polite to them in the same way that they're polite to you.
Keir Starmer has got us into government with a big majority. He was completely clear before the election that he wasn't going to be able to do the 2-child benefit policy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't an early thing that comes along.
I went up to Gordon Brown and said, hello? No, yes, what is it? I said, found all these Tory candidates breaking land. Let me see it. This is brilliant.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Susie Boniface and Anita Boateng. So let's take a look at the Express, shall we? And their headline, heartless. 86% of poorest pensioners will lose fuel help, describing the Labour government as heartless for putting them in this situation. Anita.
Yes, I mean, so the rumblings over winter fuel payments, even though the big vote over whether or not to proceed with this has taken place, I think there is still some political disquiet, and certainly that you have the opposition parties who are determined to keep pursuing this as a way to really either force the government into a U-turn or to kind of make political hay out of it. But there is, it's worth remembering, at the heart of this, a lot of pensioners who are looking forward to quite a tough winter because of the reality of the cost of energy these days. So this new data seems to have come partly from the government, Emma Reynolds from the Department for Work and Pensions, saying that actually there are 1.4 million older pensioners living in poverty. And then I think the Conservative extrapolating from that actually 200,000 people are receiving pensions credit, and therefore you have, 86% of people, according to this piece, who are already in poverty that could lose their energy payments. And I think that focus on that vulnerable group of people is going to continue coming into the winter, especially because Labour did some research back in 2017 when there were rumours that the Conservatives were going to, government at the time, were going to withdraw universal winter fuel payments, saying that 3,850 people would die as a result of that policy. And that language and that rhetoric is coming back again at this critical time.
But Susie, we're not going to see a U-turn on this.
No. I don't think so. But again, it's a massive failure of messaging, which is... We could go into huge detail about what's going wrong with government at the moment. But although there's 1.4 million people in absolute poverty, which is people who cannot afford to pay for the necessities of life, food and water, like heating, light, this stuff like that, 1.2 of them aren't on pension credits. Therefore, the Express says they would lose their winter fuel payments. However, there are 2.3 million people in this country who are older, who are pensioners, who should have the pension tax credit. And about 880,000 of them do not claim it at all. So a large chunk of those 1.2 million, which the Express are talking about here, should be on pension tax credit, are not on pension tax credit for a variety of reasons. Either they don't know they qualify, or they'd rather just have the immediate payment of the winter fuel payment without having to fill in the forms for the pension tax credit and go through the means testing. But my problem with this is not that there's... The story is right, it's accurate, it's slightly slanted, but it's accurate. But the Express and its readership is all way in here, when you go into the paper, it's talking about help save winter fuel payments, fill in this form, send off, campaign with us, we're going to fight to get it back, which isn't going to work. But there's nothing in here which says, do you qualify for pension tax credits? Here's how you apply. There are 880,000 people who will be suffering and may contribute to those deaths that you mentioned, who are not being helped to apply. And that's what the government has to do. It has to say, you need to get this, and then you get your winter fuel payment.
Quickly get in this story in the eye, Anita. The price that Sir Keir Starmer is going to have to pay for a softer Brexit is in about 20 seconds.
Yes, a youth mobility scheme. So what's fascinating about this is the EU are very keen on a youth mobility scheme. It basically means that international students do not have to pay international fees to come to university in the UK, which is a big difference between UK fees and international fees. And also, lots of international students can learn English. And so the EU continues to kind of dangle this over the head of Keir Starmer in the hope that they can lure him into wanting the things that he wants, like a veterinary agreement and a softer Brexit. So that's what's being pushed in the eye.
Well done. In the time allotted as well. Anita and Susie, thank you very much for the moment. Let's take a look at the weather for you now. Well, there is a risk of heavy and thundery showers in the south this weekend, but there will be some warm and sunny spells elsewhere. However, it will be a grey start for many on Saturday morning, with low cloud and drizzle for many central and eastern areas. Further south, a scattering of heavy showers will affect parts of England and Wales. Low cloud will linger near North Sea coast tomorrow. Otherwise, much of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England will be dry with warm, sunny spells. However, it will feel increasingly humid in the south as bands of heavy, thundery downpours move into England and Wales. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, the Israeli military say they've killed a leading Hezbollah commander in an airstrike in Lebanon.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America? People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.